Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals, and today was a great day. Why? Because I finally found this NECA 2-pack, the Rasputin and Genghis Punk Frog 2-pack. I've been searching for this thing for weeks. You know, every day I drive up to one Target, I check, wouldn't find anything, and then I drive to another Target, I couldn't find anything. I just left every day empty-handed. I haven't been able to even find the disguised turtles yet for whatever reason. So, finally, today I got these. And how did I get them? Well, somebody I know that I talked to locally about collecting NECA toys sent me a message and said, hey, look, this Target got a shipment in today. Go check tomorrow morning. So, I went first thing this morning and I found them. So, my advice to you is make some local friends who also collect toys and help each other out. Like, that's the best way, I guess, now that you're going to be able to find this stuff. Let's get in here. Let's start talking about the packaging here. All right. First, you got this very nice, huge window here so you can see the two guys standing next to each other. You can see all the accessories. Of course, the package is like the Turtle Van style where you have the green on top and the yellow on the bottom. You have two shots of the punk frogs. You have Rasputin over here and Genghis. And I got to say that what I really like about this set is finally, I think it'll help me remember all the frogs' names. Because, since back in the day, I've always remembered Genghis and Napoleon because they had toys. But I always forget Rasputin and Attila. So finally, I think this is going to burn into my brain. Not only that, but I'm also happy that this set exists because I always loved how the turtles had their set of weapons and the frogs had their set of weapons. And now finally you have a toy here to keep all this stuff in your mind. So that's great. Up top, you have the turtle logo. On the side here, you have a picture of Rasputin. He looks all right. And over here, you got a shot of Genghis Frog. And on the back, you have a pretty cool shot of the two of them standing next to each other. I kind of wish that they would have put another, the other two turtle or frogs down here. That way you had them on the back and, it'd be teasing you. Eventually they'd be coming, but they're not on there. What is cool, though, is they actually have the ultimate foot soldier down here on the bottom. So that's nice because, finally I have a physical picture of the ultimate foot soldier. Now I just need the toy. So, all right. So I'm going to open this guy up. I'm going to move these guys around and, hopefully not break anything. And I will talk to you in a second. Before I talk about the figures, I also want to mention that behind the figures in the package, there's this very cool shot of the swamp from the cartoon. I'm pretty sure that this is the background from the Leatherhead episode, and down here, that's actually quicksand. So here they are, fresh out of the package and ready to fight the evil forces of the Shredder? Well, probably not. Most likely they're just going to go hang out at the swamp and, eat crawdads, mosquitoes, and run away from Leatherhead. These frogs like to take it easy. They don't like to fight too much. Now, I think that these guys look amazing. I think they look great. I think they are very close to how they appear in the cartoon. And I will tell you my little nitpick about them in a second. But in general, they look fantastic. And you might look at these and think, well, that's kind of cheap looking. They just use the same exact bodies and just change the colors. Well, guess what? In the cartoon, all four punk frogs pretty much used the same exact model. They just changed the colors. And the biggest difference is that Genghis and Rasputin, they have spotted shirts and they wear triangle medallions around their necks. And Attila and Napoleon have striped shirts and they wear circle medallions around their necks. So I can't fault NECA at all for keeping them all similar. I think that, they look great because the one thing about the punk frogs is, they're not like regular human proportioned and then they just have frog heads. They're actually supposed to look like giant frogs with sort of human limbs, right? So if you look at them in the cartoon, one thing you can kind of say that's different about the toys compared to the cartoon is in the cartoon, the heads are very big compared to the bodies. They almost look like they have a 2 heads length from the top of their heads to the bottoms of their pelvis. So that's a little different from these toys. And these toys, they kind of made them a little longer. They're kind of like 3 heads. And I guess, they probably did some of that for the articulation. And like I said, I think that's fine. That's not a deal breaker for me because they still have a very froggy appearance. Another thing that's great about these figures is, they're always kind of squatting in the cartoon. Like they always look like they're ready to hop because that's kind of how they move. I think they walk a little bit, but so you want your punk frogs to be squatting on your shelf like all the time. And because of the way these feet are designed and the way you can move the legs around, you can get them into squatted positions, and like they balance extremely well without falling over. So that is really good. So before I go over like the sculpts and the articulation and a review of these figures, I'm just going to go over a little brief history of the punk frogs in the cartoon. The punk frogs first appeared in the season 2 episode Invasion of the Punk Frogs, which was broadcast in 1988. You may be wondering, what's the origin of the punk frogs? Well, at this point in time in the show, the Shredder is stuck in New York, and Krang is stuck in Dimension X in the Technodrome. And Shredder is pretty much whining to Krang, telling him he wants more mutagen so that he can make an army of animals, or, an army of mutants. And Krang tells him that he doesn't want to because at this point in time in Dimension X, there is a ion storm. But Shredder still whines and complains, and eventually Krang sends it to him. And because of the ion storm, the canister of ooze does not show up in New York. It shows up in Florida, where it falls in the swamp water, cracks, breaks open, and drains mutagen into the swamp water. At this point in time, 4 regular frogs jump in the swamp water, and they mutate into the punk frogs. When Shredder learns that the canister of ooze landed in Florida, he decides to wear a disguise, and he travels down to Florida, trying to find the canister, and that's when he discovers the punk frogs. And there he lies to them and tells them that the turtles are evil, and Splinter is evil. And they think that they can trust him because he uses this device to give them clothes, and he names them all. You have Attila the Frog, who uses a spiked ball, like a ball and chain. You have Genghis Frog, who has an axe. You have Napoleon Bona Frog, who uses a whip. And you also have Rasputin, the Mad Frog, who uses a bow and arrow. Supposedly, the Shredder has trained these guys to be like expert fighters in a matter of like 2 hours. So I don't know how that makes sense, but whatever. The Shredder then tricks them into robbing some banks and also stealing some chemicals for him. Now, at certain points in times, the frogs meet up with the turtles, and it looks like they're going to battle, but, there's always something that happens where they just kind of escape, and there's never an actual fight between the turtles and the frogs. Close to the end of the episode, the frogs are frozen by this group called the Anti-Turtle Squad, and the turtles decide to save them. They take them back to their lair where they thaw them out, and then the frogs realize that they can trust the turtles, and the turtles and the frogs double-cross the Shredder, and that's pretty much it. Next, the punk frogs show up in the episode Leatherhead. That was a Season 3 episode in 1989, and in that episode, it's revealed that the same mutated water that mutated the frogs into the punk frogs also mutated an alligator into Leatherhead. Leatherhead chases after the punk frogs, he captures them, and essentially he makes them his slaves. So Napoleon calls up the turtles with his turtle comm and says to the turtles, you gotta come down here and save us! So the turtles head down to Florida, they save the punk frogs. Eventually the Shredder comes down because he also learned about Leatherhead, so he wants to recruit Leatherhead to join his Technodrome group. Some small battles happen, and in the end, Shredder's turned into a baby, and Leatherhead runs away. At one point in time, this is pretty much the only time that Napoleon is useful with his whip in the cartoon. All the turtles and the punk frogs in April, they all fall in some quicksand, and Napoleon uses his whip to get everybody out of them. I mean, Genghis wasn't going to help. He can't even keep his eyes off of April. The next episode to feature the punk frogs is the Season 4 episode, Big Bug Blunder. And that episode only features one punk frog, and that's Genghis. In that episode, Genghis decides to go on vacation, so he leaves his swampy home in Florida, and he comes up to New York to visit the Ninja Turtles. And it's in this episode that he wears the disguise included in this 2-pack. Unfortunately for Genghis, or fortunately, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because he tries to eat one of these insects. But at the same time, he comes to visit the Ninja Turtles. The Shredder has his own scheme, some evil scheme, where he's decided that he's going to mutate a bunch of insects and unleash them upon the city so that they can destroy the city and he can take over. So Genghis helps the turtles stop the insects, sends them back to the Technodrome, and at one point, he even gets his shot at saving April. In Season 5, the Punk Frogs show up in 2 episodes. The first episode is Napoleon Bonafrog, Colossus of the Swamp. I will talk more about that in the Napoleon episode. Essentially, just Napoleon gets shot with a mutas shooter, or a mutagen shooter, or something like that. Some gun that Shredder has, and it causes him to become a Hulk Napoleon Bonafrog. He goes back and forth just like the Hulk. They also show up in the Season 5 episode, Leonardo Renaissance Turtle. And in that episode, what happens is some dude creates some robot to stop all the crime in the city. It's called Lex. It's not Rex. Rex actually shows up and fights Lex in that episode. But, all the crime is gone in New York. So the turtle, Raphael and Michelangelo decide to leave New York and go down to Florida where they hang out with the Punk Frogs. They only show the Punk Frogs very briefly, just like swimming and hanging out, and that's about it. And that's actually the last episode with Attila and Rasputin. The final episode of the Punk Frogs is in Season 7. It's called Dirk Savage, Mutant Hunter. And in that, they briefly just kind of show up. Napoleon and Genghis show up in New York because they want to hang out with the turtles. And as soon as they get there, they get captured by Dirk Savage, Mutant Hunter. And they're pretty much gone for most of the episode until the end, whenever the turtles free all the mutants. And, that episode is pretty cool. It has a pretty decent storyline, so you should check it out, because I'm not giving it justice at all. There's a lot of stuff that happens in that. But, they free the frogs and some other mutants that you've never seen before. And like I said, Season 7 is pretty good, so you should check it out. So as I said before, I really like the sculpts of these guys a lot. I think they look great. From back to front, right? I think they look very froggy. I like the paint on their faces. I like how you actually have the little the circles and stuff like that to try to give them a nice texture, like they have warts or something like that, right? These guys have the same exact bodies, and like I said, because of the model in the cartoon, that's to be expected. But they look really good, and I will say that like the spots on the shirts look nice and clean. All the paint is done pretty well here. And like they just have very simple designs, so there isn't really much to point out here. It's not like the Rat King where you have like all these different straps and all this kind of stuff. I mean, they're just wearing the same exact shirt. They have the same shorts on, medallions, and the same wristband and wristwatch over there. So let's see here. I do like how froggy they look. Like the faces look very much like mutated frogs or cartoony frogs, and I think that's really good. I think if anything, one thing you could say that this toy doesn't have is kind of in the cartoon, they're very hunched over. Like I said before, the size of the head is a lot bigger in the cartoon, and it kind of makes them look a little more hunched over. And these guys do not have that. They're still very kind of straight up and down, but it still works. I think some of it is because of the way the legs are shaped. When they're squatted, they still look more like frogs. And even when you're looking at them straight on, how their head is kind of like sunken into their shoulders like that, it still works well. So I don't think it's that, that bothersome or anything like that. They both have spots on their faces, and the smiling faces have the same spots, and the angry faces have the same spots. The frog feet look pretty good, and because they're so long, like I said, that helps really stabilize them when you're trying to get them in squatted positions. The other thing, too, is that, they may have reused body parts, but they have all brand new body parts. Everything on here is brand new and not reused from something else, which is pretty cool. Like, the arms are not the Ninja Turtle arms or the legs or anything like that. It's all brand new stuff from what I can tell. So that's pretty good. Like I said, the paint is good, and then the pegs are pretty decent. Lots of times NECA paints their pegs, so they did a decent job of matching the pegs in the front and like in the back here. But you do, of course, always get the whole thing where eventually the paint stops or starts to wear off in the peg. Yeah, even in the back of the feet here, that was painted, but it's worn off. That's like the biggest negative thing, but I don't know what they could do, because I don't know how they could possibly make like the pegs painted or like cast in the same color on both sides. I'm pretty sure that that's not possible. All right, so for articulation here, the heads are on a ball joint, and you can take the heads off. And I will say this too, that the heads that are on these bodies, they're easy to pull off and get on, but getting on the extra heads can be a little tricky, and it never seems to go on as well as the ones that are originally packaged with them. So you can just easily pop off the head, and there's a giant ball in there. You know, I wouldn't have thought these frogs would have such giant balls, but they do. And so you're trying to get your extra head on here, and it just, no matter how hard you try to get it in place, it'll like go down, but there's something about it where the ball joint isn't going into the neck as much, or the bottom of the bottom of the head as much as you want it to. So I don't know what's up. I'm trying to push it down, but it just, for whatever reason, I cannot get the second heads to go down as good. I possibly should warm these up and start, you know, messing around with it a little bit, but I haven't. So get watch it. See how easily that popped and went into place? That's what you want, but the other heads don't do that. So for articulation, like I said, you have the ball joint in the head. You have a ball joint here in the torso, so you can rock him back and forth a little bit, but not too much. He mostly has rotation there. You have a cut right across the waist, so you can rotate him there. In the shoulder here, you have a swivel, and you have a hinge. Now, here you have a cut right at the bottom of the sleeve, and this is the part where I was having some trouble. For whatever reason, I had the hardest time getting these bicep swivels, you know, to get started. I tried warming them up, and that only worked with one. It wouldn't work with the other one. So eventually what I did was I took a pair of pliers and I put a towel around them, and then I grabbed onto that bicep and just kind of turned it until I got it. And luckily the peg or whatever inside didn't snap off. Then you have a swivel and a hinge here at the elbow. So you kind of have a double rotation in this upper arm area. You in the wrist here, you have a swivel, and you also have a hinge. I like that they actually have these sculpted on here, this bracelet and this wristband, because they don't fall off when you change the hands. The hip joints are really good. I really, really like these brand new NECA hip joints, where they have the ball in there, and then they have the plastic piece inside wrapped around that ball. Because it just, right out of the package, it just always moves so easily. I have never had any problems with these new hip joints. And I wish all the NECA toys had them, and pretty much everything since the Rock Soldier, I think, do, which is great. And what's kind of annoying to me is that I just saw on Facebook somebody was posting the brand new, they finally got their Slash and Leatherhead 2-pack from pre-ordering it on NECA's website. And the Slash has these kinds of hip joints. The original Slash didn't have these hip joints. They have the original crappy NECA hip joints. And, like, I wish I had that Slash and Leatherhead 2-pack. But, like, I wasn't going to buy it way back when because I already had it. And now that I know that the hips are better, you know, I would have bought it. So you have a cut here at the bottom of the shorts, so you can turn the hip, the thigh around. You have double jointed knees, and they move really well. And like I said, all these joints have moved really well for the cartoon series since the Rock Soldier set. Since then, they've kind of, I don't know, whatever reason, they've worked things out. Not in the movie set. I think the movie set is still very tight, and I think that the arcade set was very tight. But the cartoon set has evolved and become better. You have a hinge and an ankle rocker at the ankle. And that's all you got for this guy. When it comes to scale, like if you look at them in the cartoon when they're walking and they're pulling Leatherhead around, it looks as though the punk frogs are about up to the top of the Ninja Turtles' shoulders. And, you know, of course, Leatherhead looks giant compared to them. If you look at these toys, right, you can squat them low enough so that they're actually in scale with Donatello here. Like, I think that's great. Like, they look perfect. Like, You know, he's shorter than him. When I first saw it in the package, because you know they have their legs extended, I thought that you know they could have possibly been taller than the Ninja Turtles. But no, actually seeing them and getting them into the right position, they look great. You know, it all matches how it's supposed to be. All right, so now we're gonna start talking about Genghis Frog here, right? Now, Genghis was the first punk frog that we actually had a toy of way back in the 80s, and you know, as you can see, the designs are very similar. You know, like they kind of have like the Hawaiian shirt on, except his design is a lot more simplified. You know, even like the necklace here, it looks like he has a shark tooth necklace, and here it's just a triangle, and you know, he's got a couple spots here, and then like he's just completely covered in, you know, warts and bulges and stuff like that. Now, what I don't understand, or I don't know nearly enough information on that, I would love to know, is like, what came first? What was the first design? Did they design the toy first, and then did they base that toy design? I'm sorry, did they translate that toy design into the cartoon, or were they working on the cartoon and they were like, hey, you know, we should make a toy of what we're doing here. Like all this stuff had to happen around the same time. In my honest opinion, I think that they probably designed the toy first, and then they gave those designs to Fred Wolf, you know, whatever the company is, Fred Wolf Productions or whatever, and then they made that into the toy. Because the first episode, Invasion of the Punk Frogs, that came out in November of 1988. So they were probably working on that for a while, like maybe all the way back into, you know, even 87 or early 88 to make that cartoon, because it takes a long time to make 2D animated cartoons. But the first Genghis Frog action figure didn't come out until 1989. It was actually in the second year of the toy line. So what's the answer? I don't know. But yeah, it's just cool. Remove his glasses, and you know, it's just neat. And you know, I kind of think that the cartoon came second because they gave all the different frogs their own weapons and stuff like that, and they didn't give Genghis like an axe or anything like that. What I think that they probably did was they probably had one frog toy. They probably designed this guy, and then Fred Wolf was like, you know, we're going to make a whole team of frogs. And then after that, after they had the cartoon, they were like, oh, those punk frogs are pretty popular. We should now make a toy of Napoleon Bonafrog. That is my guess. So take that with a grain of salt. But like all of the designs are here. Like even he's kind of got like a wristwatch here, and he's got that over there, and then you kind of have the regular bracelet. Like I said, I think they just took this and just copied it a bunch of times. I don't know. If you have any inside information with Fred Wolf or Playmates, please contact Gary in the comments below. Genghis Frog never showed up in Mirage Comics either, so, you know, he has no prior history before this toy or the cartoon. Alright, so now we're going to get into accessories, and before we get into specific accessories, we're going to go with the generic accessories, right? So you have the turtle comm that the punk frogs use to contact the turtles. There's two of them here, so each frog gets their own turtle comm. Next, each punk frog comes with their own little baby punk frog. I mean, well, it's them before they were mutated, and these are very nice too, and their skin tones match the same skin tones as the larger punk frogs. And as you can see in the cartoon, they look very good. They're very similar to how they're supposed to look. Now here's an item where I think a lot of people have no idea what this is. And to be honest with you, I didn't know either until I saw somebody post about it. But I would have found it out anyway because I watched all of the Punk Frog episodes before making this review to figure out all this information. But this is actually a trap. This is actually one of Dirk... what the hell's his name? Dirk Savage Mutant Hunter's traps. And he actually uses this... Well, he has it on the ground, and you know, one of the punk frogs accidentally steps in it. I think it's Genghis. And then he gets caught. He can't run away. This blue part is actually supposed to be an energy beam. Each frog comes with two separate heads. they're the same sculpts for both of them. They both have their little smiley frog faces where they could be like, I'm just a simple frog from Florida. Can we get some pizza with flies and stink bugs on it? The second set of punk frog heads is just kind of like this angry head where they're gritting their teeth. This looks good, but you know, if you look at the package, and just the way they talk in the cartoon, it might have been cool to actually have one with an open mouth like that, instead of just the teeth showing. Although this kind of does make them look more like the toy. Just like all the Ninja Turtles, the punk frogs have their own specific weapon. And Genghis here, he's got the axe. And this is a pretty cool looking axe. On the bottom here, there's a couple of pegs from whenever they, you know, make this thing, but, or, you know, holes or divots or something like that, but it's fine. It still looks good. I like that there's actually some, like, scrapes on the blade of the axe to try to make it look a little worn. That's good. It's not like Genghis here ever actually uses this for battle. In the first episode, he just kind of has it. He never really uses it because the frogs don't really fight the turtles. They just kind of, kind of line up, and then something happens to always interrupt them. Like Rasputin shoots like a flash grenade and they escape, or they're gonna fight and then Splinter breaks them up. There's a couple shots in the episode where the axe looks like almost like a two-handed axe, like it's got a huge stick, kind of like a spear or something like that. But yeah, most of the times it just looks like he holds it with one hand. You know, I think that was just like a mistake or something. But in the next episode, he's in the Leatherhead episode. He actually uses it. When the Ninja Turtles are caught in Leatherhead's net, he throws it up in the air and cuts the net down, saving the Ninja Turtles. And then in the episode Big Bug Blunder, he actually uses it in this episode to cut open a fire hydrant so that Leonardo can spray a scorpion in the face with some water. A giant scorpion. He also uses the axe in that episode to break open the wax that's imprisoning April in the Channel 6 news building. So, you know, if you look at the toy here, it is actually pretty well scaled to his body. You know, it looks good. And Genghis here comes prepackaged with his grip hands. And, ooh, I knocked him right over. You can easily get this axe right into his hands, and it's a very, very tight grip, so it's good. You know, like you can move his hand all over the place, and this is not going to fall out. So that's great. However, I have noticed that I'm starting to get a couple spots here in the hand, so I think that the paint on the axe is starting to wear off a little bit. The next really awesome thing included with Genghis is his disguise. And that's hilarious. I love that. I think it looks great. Like I said, that's from the episode Big Bug Blunder. The biggest difference is that Genghis wears like a suit in that whole episode. He never appears with his Hawaiian shirt or shorts on. He's always in that suit, so he's almost in disguise the whole episode, except he takes off his mask. But like, I love the way that this mask looks. I think it looks great. It looks like it's a couple different pieces all glued together. That's fine, because the paint is very clean, and you know, whatever they could do to keep this thing nice and clean, I think really works well. And it fits on the head really well. You just kind of pop it down on top of his eyes and you're good to go. But I'm going to be honest with you. You know what this reminds me of? This just reminds me of the Great Muppet Caper. I mean, look at that. They all have this mask on. As soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, Kermit. Okay, so the last thing that Genghis has is he has 6 different hands. He has 3 sets, and they're pretty much the same. You know, they're mirrored. The left is pretty much the exact same as the right in all 3 of them. So the first set is his gripping hands, and these work really well. Like I said, they grab this axe very good. He can hold the turtle comm really well. You know, like if he wants to call some kind of future axe murder victim. He comes with a set of pointing fingers, which is pretty cool. Like if he wants to point at some future axe murder victim. You! He also comes with a set of fists so that he can sockle Leatherhead in the mouth. Bam. That didn't hurt, I guarantee. Up next you have Rasputin, the Mad Frog. But he's not really mad. I mean, come on, look at him. But he's the only frog that has like a full name like that. I guess because of Rasputin, the Mad Monk. But, alright, so for weapons, he's got his bow and arrow, and let's start off with the quiver. This looks pretty good. This strap here is kind of like rubber, so it's nice and pliable. You can move it around them. I like how on the quiver it has like these little details, like these little cuts and stuff like that, so that way it's just not this brown, boring piece of plastic. You know, I go up underneath the arm, and then just kind of pull it around the head, and bam, you're right on there. And it fits on his back really well. It seems to stay in place no matter how you're moving him around, so that's all good. And then you have the arrows, and he's got 3. Oh no, dos tres. They're all the same thing, and they actually have little tiny cuts in the ends of them, so you can actually line them up with the string, and you can put them in his quiver. Now, in the cartoon, they actually never show... I'm pretty sure they actually never show any kind of pointed arrows with him. And, but they do show this. This is an extra arrow he has. Now, he uses his arrows on a few occasions, and in the first episode, they look like this, where they actually have the eye painted on the arrowhead. First off, he has this one arrow that he shoots, and it just explodes. It's like a flash grenade or something like that. You know, it's really bright, and it blinds the turtles so that they can't follow the frogs when they leave. Then he also uses this kind of arrow again, only this time it's not a flash grenade, it's like a real grenade because it can explode. Alright, then he uses another, I think in the Leatherhead episode, he uses a arrow, and when he shoots it, it actually creates smoke, because they're trying to, you know, blind the Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady so they can't see them. And then last, he uses this arrow in the Leatherhead episode, and when he shoots this, it actually releases a net that falls down and captures Leatherhead. So in my opinion, Rasputin is like the most useful frog out of all of them, and he didn't even have a toy. Can you believe that? He didn't have a toy. But he uses his bow and arrows on more than one occasion, and, you know, pretty frequently, where Genghis only uses his axe a couple of times. Napoleon uses his whip to save the turtles, like they pulled themselves out of the quicksand, and at one point he tries to hit Leatherhead, but he, you know, gets out of it. And then Attila is like completely useless. He never even uses his mace or his morning star or his ball and chain once. So that is a bummer. That guy gets no credit whatsoever. All right, so now this bow is actually pretty cool looking. I like the detail on it. I like the ink lines. Now here's the thing, right? There's a little tiny pig coming out the side of here. What is the purpose of that? There's not like a hole on the back of him or anything like that where you can stick it to like hold it in place. I don't think, at least. It doesn't look like it. I'm not sure if it's there so that it can like line up with his hand, so like maybe it doesn't slide out of his hand. And also in the cartoon, depending on the episode and which shot it is, sometimes Rasputin holds the bow with his left hand or his right hand. So like maybe it's there just to keep it in place so that it doesn't fall down. Oh wait, I'm stupid. You know what? I get it now. I assume it's there so that you can actually rest the arrow on it. That's my guess. And you can line that arrow onto the string like that and line it up there and shoot it. Now the problem is you can't really pose him holding the arrow because his arm is not long enough. He cannot really reach so that he can actually grab the arrow. At least I don't think. And you can try to, I don't know. It's difficult. You won't be able to get him like, I guess, actually, that's not that bad. Although I would think that if you pulled that string back, that's totally going to launch that arrow. So you can kind of do something like this to get him to hold it like that. Alright, so hopefully I won't lose this arrow, but let's see how well this bow and arrow shoots. We'll rest it on that little peg there, and we'll pull back, and woo! Now that was fast. Rasputin's bow changes throughout the series. first it looks pretty much just like this, but then later on in the Leatherhead episode, it looks like this. Just like Genghis, Rasputin comes with 6 different hands, 3 sets of the same mirrored hands, right? So you have the smaller grip that Genghis has, right? And that, it's the same exact grip that Genghis has. He can hold the bow well with that. You can get it in there fairly easily, somewhat easily. All right. And then you also have a wider grip. You have this one where it's open a little more, and it's more easy for him to hold the bow with this hand. And like I said, same on both sides. And last, Rasputin comes with a set of peace finger hands. Like, I don't know if this is supposed to be something for his bow and arrow. Like, if he's supposed to... I don't know. I can't see how he would be able to hold the arrow with these fingers. So they must be peace fingers. Now, the thing is, with all these hands, it kind of seems like they're going for the same thing that they went with the Ninja Turtles, right? Where all the Ninja Turtles, they all came with different hands, but all their hands are the same color, so you can mix and match them, and you have a nice set of different hands you can pick. So it seems like, this kind of thing would have worked better if all of the frogs had the same skin tone, because, maybe you want your Rasputin to have a fist, or maybe you want Genghis to have a bigger grippy kind of hand, right? So unfortunately, you can't really mix and match these hands with each other because it wouldn't match the rest of their body. So that's a bummer. But it'd be cool if they had more, like, at least maybe everybody had like a fist in their own skin tone. But I don't know. I think in general it still works, but it just seems like one of those things where, like, if they all had the same skin tone, this would have worked out a lot better for just variations of how you want to pose these guys. If you wanted to see how Genghis scales with the old Playmates toys, well, here you go. Here he is next to the original Genghis, Napoleon, Frog, and also Donatello. Here he is next to some of the Super 7 Ultimates, and what he lacks in size, he makes up for in charm and charisma. Here's a scale comparison of how the frogs compare to pretty much every character, like body type in this toy line so far. I'm pretty sure that this is every single body type, because Leatherhead has pretty much the same body as Bebop, Rocksteady, the Triceratons. Trag has the same body as Granitor, and so on and so forth, right? And plus all the Ninja Turtles are the same. Taking these kinds of shots is getting harder and harder after every release, because this line is just getting so big. It's getting so vast and deep. It's getting crazy, And I gotta say, this is a missed opportunity. They never had a crossover episode with Baxter and the frogs. Like, that would have been a perfect episode where, maybe they're trying to eat him or something like that, and he's trying to get out of there. Baxter, you better get out of there. They're gonna eat you. I think these guys are great, and to be honest with you, I really have no complaints. The joints worked really well, a lot better than some of the early NECA figures have worked, and they pose well, and you can set up really cool looking shots where they're fighting old Leatherhead. I'll be honest, there's some toy lines where I really just don't care that much about the heroes. I just love the villains, right? But, one of the best things about the Ninja Turtles is that all of the heroes are really awesome too. Like, they're all characters that you would want. So, like, the Punk Frogs are awesome, Casey Jones is awesome, and of course the Turtles are awesome. And in the future, Mondo Gecko's going to be awesome, and so will Ace Duck. So I'm just really happy that we're at a point where, like, NECA's cranking out all their toys, Super 7's putting out all their toys. Like, this line is getting crazy, and it's just getting better and better. I promise I'm not a frog. I just want you to come home with me so I could show you my newly renovated kitchen. So, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and talk to you later.